Our last lesson of this unit is called Applications of Linear Systems. Solving linear systems, when we have a word problem, we're going to be able to solve the system in whatever way we choose. So we could solve by graphing, by substitution, or by elimination. Something that you should know is that we should always define two variables. You should have an x and a y, or two different variables to represent unknown quantities. We write the equations relating the variables ourselves, and then we solve the linear system in whatever method we choose. Always remember to state a conclusion or a therefore statement, and then check your answer. Example 1 is about a fitness club. There's an annual membership fee, and also this fitness club charges an amount for each session. Renita attended 30 sessions in the year, and she paid $350 as a total. And Calvin attended 50 sessions and paid $450. What I might do is have you think back to the equation y equals mx plus b. What we're given here is that we're actually given the total amount. We're given the y. The $350, for example, is the total amount. And the 30 sessions is how many times they go. So we're given the x. What we aren't given is the rate, which would be the slope of the equation, and we're also not given the flat fee for the membership. So what we can do is try and write our equations based on y equals mx plus b. I might let m be the rate per session, and that's just like our slope, and I'm going to let b be the membership fee. So when I sub these numbers into an equation, what I get is the answer. 350 is the total, and that's going to equal the m. The rate is what I don't know. I do know that she went 30 times, and I also don't know how much the membership fee was. For Calvin, I know that he paid $450 as his total. I don't know the rate still, but it's the same as Renita. And I know that he went 50 times. So I really do have two equations, and I'm allowed to solve this by substitution or elimination. I think what I might do is solve this one by elimination, because I see right here that I have two b's. I have a 1b and a 1b vertically, so I would be able to just subtract. What I might do is rewrite this so it makes a little bit more sense. I might put the 450 on the top, and I'm going to write it like 50m, and the second one I might write underneath just because it's a smaller number, and I'm going to write it like 30m. When I choose to subtract, I'm going to solve this by elimination. So I am subtracting 450 minus 350, and that's 100. 50 minus 30 is 20m, and b minus b would cancel out. So right away it's pretty quick to solve. I would have to divide both sides by 20. So I get the rate per session is 5. Do is sub that back into an equation. So I might pick maybe the second equation here because the numbers are a little bit smaller. So I'm going to sub in 350 equals 30, but m I know is 5. So now I'm going to be able to solve for b. So 350 equals 30 times 5 is 150. I would have to subtract 150 from both sides, so 200 equals b. When it's a word problem, what I would like you to always do is just not write, therefore the solution is 200, but actually explain in words what it is that you found. So a nice final statement might be, therefore the rate per session is $5, and the membership fee is $200. Example 2 is also a really good question. The Peace Development Club invests money collected from a walkathon. The total amount invested is $4,300. Part of it is invested into an account earning 4% per year, and the rest is loaned out, and then it will be paid back at 6% per year. So really they are investing and getting a return, an interest return on that investment. So the total that this club invests is $4,300, and the total of the interest they get back is $208. So it says how much is invested and how much is loaned out. So what I might do is say let X be how much is invested and let Y be how much is loaned out. Okay, so we have our let statements to start off. The first thing is, when we look at the total amount that they had, the Peace Development Club had $4,300. So I know however much they invested plus how much they loaned out, the total is $4,300. That's what they had to work with in the beginning. The second equation is usually a little bit more complicated. We might bring into account the interest at 4% per year and 6% per year, and that equals a certain amount of interest. So I know that the part that's invested at 4%, I would never use 4 in my math answer. I'd always use the decimal form, 0.04, plus 6% that was loaned out equals the total amount of interest. So the first equation is just talking about how much money they had invested in each part. And then the second equation has to do with the interest amounts and the percentages and how much interest they collected. So we could choose to solve this by substitution or elimination. I might try and do substitution this time just to have something different. When I look at the first equation, substitution, remember that you always have to isolate a variable first. So something easy to do would be to move the y to the opposite side of the equal sign. So it becomes negative y plus 4,300. Okay, remember substitution means if x equals that, then in the opposite equation we would sub what x equals in for the x variable. So in the second equation everything looks the same except the x value gets replaced with what we're substituting. So then what we'd have to do to solve it is use the distributive property. So we could multiply through, and when we do, we get 0.04 negative, y plus 172 when we multiply, plus 0.06y equals 208. We could combine our y terms together. So notice that there is a negative 0.04 and a positive 0.06. So we could have 0.02y plus 172 equals 208. Subtract the 172 from both sides, and 0.02y equals 36. When we divide both sides by 0.02, we get an answer of y equaling 1,800. So what that means is the amount that they loaned out is 1,800. We could sub that back in to any of the equations up above. So I might pick this first equation that I had because it just looks the simplest. X plus y equals 4,300. So sub in. X plus y equals 4,300. And for y, I'm going to put 1,800 and substitute. And then subtract that from both sides. And our answer for x is 2,500. So what we'd have to say in a therefore statement is, therefore 2,500 was invested and $1,800 was loaned out. Last example that we'll do is example 3. Example 3, Mary wishes to pack a trail mix of peanuts and currants for a hiking trip. So the grocery store sells these items in bulk. Peanuts are sold for $5.50 per kilogram and currants are sold for $8.20. And what she's going to do is make a mixture. The total mass of peanuts and currants in her mixture, total mass is 3.9 kilograms. And the total cost is $26.04. So what is the mass of peanuts in the mixture? So let's let X be the mass of the peanuts, and we'll let Y be the mass of the currants. So therefore, what we know, there's going to be probably a simple equation, just talking about the mass. The mass of the peanuts plus the mass of the currants equals the mass of the mixture. And we do know that that is 3.9 kilograms. So one equation might just be x plus y equals 3.9. The other equation is going to focus more on the cost. Right here we have the cost of the peanuts and the cost of the currants, and we have a total cost. So what I want you to do is think of maybe one simple equation, one that's a little bit more complicated, bringing in the price of each. So $5.50 per kilogram of peanuts, $8.20 per kilogram of currants equals $26.04 as a total cost. Just because we have such a simple first equation, I might solve this again by substitution. So what I need to do is isolate a variable. If we leave the x where it is and move the y to the opposite side, we would isolate x. And remember, for substitution, if x equals negative y plus 3.9, we sub that in for the x variable when we're using substitution. So I know this has a lot of decimals in it, but that's okay. We're going to sub in negative y plus 3.9 in for the x, and then the rest of the line stays exactly the same. So negative 550y plus 21.45 plus the 820y equals 26.04. We can combine our y terms together. So notice that there's a y term there and another one there. We can combine our like terms. So we get 2.7y plus 21.45 equals 26.04. We need to now subtract 21.45 from both sides. And when we do, 2.7y equals 4.59. And the last step would be to just divide both sides by 2.7. So y is 1.7. What we found is the mass of the currants. What the question is asking you to find is the mass of the peanuts. So all we would need to do is sub that back in, preferably to this first equation because it looks like the easiest one. We're going to sub back in 1.7. X plus y equals 3.9. And so my x is still in the equation. Y becomes 1.7. And we subtract 1.7 from both sides. So our final answer for the mass of the peanuts is 2.2, and it's kilograms.